في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال.
Alhamdulillah, it's beautiful to be here in this gathering. My first time coming to, I thought it was Stoke, but then I was told it's Newcastle. Alhamdulillah. So what I wanted to just share with you today is some reflections on a prophetic narration, a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's a famous hadith, and I'm sure many of you have heard it. But this short hadith gives us true direction on how we should be living our lives. And there's advice in this hadith for everyone, regardless of your age. We have many young people here, mashallah. And what is that hadith? It's a famous hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ightanib khamsin qabla khams," that take benefit, take advantage of 5 before 5. Heard this hadith before?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
What are the 5 things? The first thing the Prophet ﷺ mentioned was what? Take benefit of?
Health before disease.
Time,
health, these are
The busy,
what's the first?
the busy or something like that.
He said, Shababaka qabla harami.
Yeah, Jawan.
Take advantage of your youth before you reach old age.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the first thing he mentions. Take advantage of your youth before you reach old age. So many young people here, mashallah. This is advice to you. The Prophet ﷺ is saying, take advantage of your young days. You know, when you're young, there's many things you can do at this age that you can't do when you're older. Yes? How many of you play football?
death before young.
All of them.
MashaAllah.
All of
To play football now, when you reach my age, it gets very difficult. Yes, so you can do things, like I said, when you're young that you can't do when you're older. So the Prophet ﷺ said, take advantage of this time. Like, what other things can you do when you're young? You know, if you want to memorize the Quran, the time to do it is when you're young. If you want to learn the deen, the time to do it is when you're young. If you want to learn a skill, the time to do it is when you're young. The things that you can do now, and the energy you have now, you won't have later on. Yes, you won't have later on. And you know, when you're young, it's a difficult time. Yes, because especially for those who are in high school and college and university, there are a lot of fitnas out there, a lot of challenges, there are a lot of temptations. And this is why, subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in another hadith, the famous hadith of Sab'atun yudhilluhum Allahu fi dhillihi yawma la dhilla illa dhilluh. He said there are 7 categories of people who will be under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's shade on the day in which there's no shade except His shade. I.e., the day of judgment, there will be 7 categories of people who will be under Allah's shade on that day. And one of them, he said, Shabun nash'a bi ibadatillah, a young person who grew up in the worship of Allah. A young person who grew up in the worship of Allah. Why? Because it's very difficult when you're young to be connected to the deen, when there's so much temptation and fitna around. So the reward is what? The reward is so great. Why? Because the challenge is also great. As it's not easy when everybody's doing something at school, or everybody's doing something at college, whether it's they're engaged in things that aren't permissible in Islam. Okay? Whether it's drugs, whether it's relationships with the opposite gender, whether it's going to this place or that place. This isn't permissible for us as Muslims. But everybody's doing it. So it's easy, the easy thing to do is what? Is follow what everybody else is doing. Yeah? Because everyone's doing it. It's hard to not do something that everyone else is doing. It's hard to stop yourself. It's hard to be different. But that's the way of the prophets. The Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, as he grows up at a time where everybody's worshipping idols. And think about that. Everybody in the community is worshipping idols. Ibrahim alayhi salam by himself says, no, this isn't right. He didn't just follow what everybody else was doing. Yes? He had principles. And it's hard. Everybody's going to turn against you. People will say things about you, etc., etc. But that's true iman. That's true character. That's true faith. Is when you say, no, if it's not in line with my deen, I can't do it. I can't accept it. Yes, but this was the way of the Anbiya. Anyway, coming back to the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, take advantage of your young years. Okay, do be active when you're young. And what is young in Islam? Anybody know? What age does the scholar say is young in Islam? What does this last up to? 8. 10. 13. How old are you? 13? 15. 9. 12. You guys, you're the only one. Your age only. Up to 40. You think you're 40? 40 is like a granddad. No, 40 is young. I'm still under 40, so I consider myself one of the youth. Yes, so up to 40, the majority of scholars say that the age of youth in Islam is up to the age of 40. Yes, so there are, again, and when you get past that age and you get to 50s and 60s, it's a lot more difficult. So utilize your younger years. Yes, do things in this time that you have. Because as I said, later on it'll get difficult. And you know, when you think about youngsters, this is something for us as parents to also reflect on, is that with our youth we need to give them responsibility. And we can't keep them as little kids. You think about a young boy or a young girl in Gaza right now. You think about a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old in Gaza, or in Syria, or in Yemen, and think about what they're going through. Many of them have had to grow up, and a 12-year-old is looking after a 6-year-old sibling because their parents have died. Yes? An 8-year-old is going out looking for work to earn money so he can survive. That's what young people your age are doing in other parts of the world. Yes? So, realize that you're very privileged. Yeah? You've got things very easy. But don't take advantage and neglect it. So use these years. Yes? Learn, and the best thing you can do in these early years is learn your religion. Okay, learn about Allah. Who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is this deen? And what is this deen that I live by? And understand it. And one of the things, again, as parents and as masajid, we need to really change is how we teach Islam to the next generation. We think that Islam is what? Make sure they can memorize, make sure they can, tell you the 5 pillars and the 6 articles of faith, and we say, MashaAllah, he knows the 5 pillars of Islam, he knows the 6 articles of faith. That's good, that's khair, but you ask the child, who is Allah? And if they can't answer that question, then there's a problem. Yes, what is this deen? So to teach them really what the values of Islam, the values of this deen. Why is Islam this beautiful way of life? What are the core principles of this deen? This is something as parents in the masjid we should be focusing on. Yes? Like when I always tell people that the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't come to teach the companions how to recite the Quran only. Or how to read the Quran. He came and taught them how to live by the Quran. That's what the Prophet ﷺ focused on. The message of the Quran, live by this message, take this message. Like I said, today we focus on just make sure you can recite. Even when you look at the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, he makes a dua to Allah, that, oh Allah, send to the people a messenger from amongst themselves. And he mentions 4 things that this messenger should do. Recite your verses, yes, teach them the book, teach them the sunnah, and purify them. What are the 4 things? Ibrahim alayhi salam makes a dua to Allah, send a messenger that can do 4 things. What are these 4 things? Just paying attention, who's just thinking what time to read? Recite the verses.
Purify them.
Purify them was the last one. What was in between? Teach them the book and the sunnah. Now what's very interesting about this dua is Ibrahim alayhi salam, he differentiates between what? Recite the verses and teach them the book. Showing that there's 2 different things. Reciting the Quran is one thing, but teaching the people the book and the meaning of the Quran and living by the Quran is something different. What do we do today? We focus on the reciting. As long as they can recite, job done. No. The greater part is what? Is teaching them the book. Living by this book. So that's something, again, a side point that we should reflect on. Okay, moving on. The second thing the Prophet ﷺ mentions to take advantage of is what? Who can tell me? Your health before you fall sick. Okay, so the first thing was youth before old age. Second thing, health. Good. Health before you fall sick. You know, subhanAllah, being healthy and free from any major illness is one of the greatest blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It really is. You know, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which he said, نِعْمَتَانْ مَغْبُونٌ فِيهِمَا كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. There are two blessings of Allah that the majority of people do not appreciate. They don't recognize them. They don't take advantage of them. What are they? He said, free time and health. Health is one of Allah's greatest blessings upon you. You know, if you're free from a major illness, you should say Alhamdulillah. You know, Alhamdulillah. Just spend a bit of time. There'll be some doctors here. Spend a bit of time in hospital. I went to visit somebody in hospital recently. And for me, honestly, it was a wake-up call. It was one of the first times in a while, where I took a moment to appreciate good health. When you walk along the ward and you see people lying on hospital beds, they can't move, they're struggling to breathe, they've got this problem, that problem, you say, Alhamdulillah, that Allah has protected me from this. Alhamdulillah, Allah saved me from this fitna, from this trial. That is an enormous blessing, that you'll only appreciate when you're tested yourself. Yes, with that trial of Allah taking the health away. This is why Wahab ibn Munabbih, he said, رُؤُسُ النِّعَمْ ثَلَاثَةً. He said, the greatest of all blessings are three. The first one, he said, is Islam. That's Allah's greatest favor upon you. He's given you Islam. Yes, that's His greatest favor. He said, the second one is what? Afiyah, well-being. Yes, when Allah gives you well-being, He gives you afiyah, this is from Allah's greatest blessings upon you. Yes, because look, the reality is you could be a millionaire. And you could have 10 million pounds in the bank. If you had 10 million pounds, what would you do? Tell me, what would you buy? MashaAllah.
Good answer.
Come and sit here and take the talk. MashaAllah. What would you buy with 10 million pounds? You can tell me. What would you buy?
He will marry.
Not buy a wife. You can tell me what would you buy? What, a mansion? What car would you buy? Ferrari. Yes. Bugatti. Motorbike, why not? Motorbike. You got the money.
في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال